My guest is Neil Gaur, researcher of ancient civilizations, archaeological discoveries, and space anomalies. He's also the creator of Portal to Ascension, which is now one of the largest consciousness event production companies in the world. Neil, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. So good to be here with you, brother.
Well, Neil, you were raised Hindu, but later
Yes.
in life you discovered Christianity. Can you tell us about your life and also the similarities between Jesus and Krishna?
Yes, I would love to. So, yeah, I was raised Hindu. I discovered Christianity, but I didn't, it's not like I became Christian. It was that because I was raised Hindu, I was never told it was the only way, right? And obviously, many religions in the world, this is the only way, and that's why everything else is the devil. And since I wasn't told is the only way, every Christmas we would celebrate Christmas. I would watch movies on Jesus, aka Yeshua's life. I'd watch things on Moses. And very soon, I mean, around 16, 17, I started wondering, why is it okay for me to be into all this information and learn about these prophets when these religions that these prophets are from literally say that we are the devil, this religion, Hinduism, has nothing to do with them? How is it okay for me to accept them? So my mom told me that there are many different prophets around the world for different religions and cultures. So I started going on a search, and the beginning of everything I did, why I'm at where I'm at now, was the simple statement, really, the question, what is the root of all religion? Is there a root of all religion? Because very quickly I started seeing similarities between Yeshua and Krishna, and there is a reason why both of them have Christ at the beginning of their name, the Christ and Krishna. It's not a coincidence. Even in ancient Greece, Christos has a similar story to this individual in ancient Greece that has a similar story to Jesus. And I saw that Yeshua was born to a virgin mother. He had a carpenter father. He was known as the Savior. He said, I'm the way and the light. And he had a spear put into the side of his body. And all of those things are the exact same things that happened to Krishna.
Hmm.
Known as the Savior, said I am the way, and said I'm the way and the light, literally said the same things. And he even died with an arrow in the same location that Yeshua had the spear put in his body. Now, side note, I feel that Yeshua survived the crucifixion. I don't know if the spearing really happened there. But anyways, I was seeing all these connections, similarities, and I was like, could it be that the story of Krishna is the original story, and the story of Christ was a recycled older story that was retold, and maybe Yeshua never existed? Now I've come around full circle, and I realize I feel like he did exist. I think the universe creates a cosmic soup, a cosmic recipe that creates prophets that have similar traits. But I went through a whole period where I was like, okay, so um, the Abrahamic religions and especially Christianity came from older texts, therefore the Krishna Krishna might be the original one. So that was the beginning phases of it all. And when I went to the root of all religion, I started looking to see, well, what's the root? If these are similar, right? Polytheism and monotheism are supposed to be completely evolved separately from each other. But now I'm finding that monotheistic religions have roots in polytheism. So let me go ahead and see if there's even a further ancient text. And that's what led me down the rabbit hole starting in 2001.
Well,
I eventually found the Sumerian scriptures from that search.
don't some people say that actually Christianity is a polytheistic religion because of all the different gods?
You mean like the saints?
No,
Or
well,
so,
like in the
yeah.
Old Testament, you talk about these different gods or different Nephilim
Yes,
that are running
yes.
things.
100%. So that's the thing. As I was sharing that they say that they both evolve separately, but I was finding out that they come from a common source, and the common source shows a pantheon of gods. And if Christianity has any connection to the Old Testament shows you that there are many beings, and they're called the powerful ones. They call them the powerful ones. And even in the commandments, Yahweh says, "You will choose no other powerful one other than me." Why would that be a commandment if there were other powerful ones? I mean, there's a whole rabbit hole of just who Yahweh was. He was actually the lesser, he was the junior god out of all the gods. He was the only god, the only Elohim, the only Anunnaki maybe, that was not given land on earth. He had to conquer and fight for his own land. So, and it seems that then obviously Christianity was built upon that, and then they chose one God. And we have Yeshua that represents the Son of God, which is actually a representation of the Son itself, the Son God. So the Son God is just one out of many gods, but they kind of put the energy on this Sun God as being the central God, kind of like how our solar system is, where we have the sun representing Zeus or whatever deity, and then all the other deities rotate around it.
Do you think that Yahweh was an ET?
Oh yeah, 100%. If you look at some of the things in the Old Testament, you'll see a story of Moses, for example, right? Moses goes up Mount Sinai and he goes and talks to Yahweh, gets the commandments, and then Yahweh says to him, "Okay, I'm going to leave now, but you need to go far back enough and hide behind that rock because when I take off, I'm paraphrasing here, there's going to be a blast, and if you're within my proximity, you won't survive." And even that description sounds like it's a rocket or some sort of being taking off in a spacecraft. And a lot of other depictions of what's happening within the Old Testament shows the connection to other gods, because in the Old Testament, the ancient Israelites were actually a polytheistic religion until 700 BCE. In 700 BCE, something happened with the Israelites where they decided to choose one god out of all the gods. There was a multiple pantheon of gods. One of them was called Anshara. Anshara, from the Old Testament, from the original scriptures, was the being from the Pleiades. And it seemed like the Elohim wasn't one race of beings, but was just a blanket statement, a term for people that came from the sky. So it didn't mean like, oh, these are the Elohim and they all come from the same planet. It was what beings were called over generations or over millennia that just had a blanket statement from beings that came from the sky. But it seems that there was a whole process going on with different deities and beings. And in 700 BCE, in 700 BCE, something happened with the Israelites where they started rewriting all the ancient scriptures and all the names of the other gods. They replaced it with Yahweh, giving Yahweh the stories that the other gods and all the activities that they had done on earth.
Well, all this information that you're citing is right here in front of us in the Bible if you want to read it. Why
Right.
don't regular preachers talk about this stuff?
We've got to a level of indoctrination where a lot of this information was wiped clean. For example, there were actually stone markers in ancient Palestine that represent where paleo contact happened. And a good friend that I work with a lot in Portal to Ascension, Paul Wallace, has done books on this. And there were ancient markers that basically there were contact points. And even in 700 BCE, and then sometime after that, a whole entire campaign was done in order to eradicate that history. So as you keep eradicating history and then you rewrite the scriptures or you rewrite the text in your own image, so to speak, the whole saying that um, history is written by the victors, right? Rewritten by the victors. It's happened so much over and over again that individuals that have been indoctrinated in certain belief systems, especially since birth, hold on to that belief so much that when you give counter arguments that challenge that belief, they do everything they can to hold on to it. And a great example is even politics. If your politician wins and they start doing things that you're not even into or aligned with, a lot of times people will go to war and really just like protect their own choice for choosing that person, even if they've gone against what they firmly believed in the first place. And so after that indoctrination for so long, so many generations, it's like we're 2,000 years deep into this type of indoctrination, right? So unless you're willing to think outside of the box and look at, well, how does everything connect? You're maybe not going to start finding the wisdom that shows that we're all interconnected. Plus, with pastors and rabbis and all that, they come from a religious background that literally says that your God has said this is the only way and every other religion on earth is wrong. So if you have that as a default setting and that is the yardstick to measure every single interaction, every single faith out there, you have a wall up that is blocking you from even receiving information that can maybe challenge your beliefs.
Can you tell us about the history of humans within the solar system or the galaxy?
Yeah. So to go back to the history of humanity, we would have to go to before humans even existed here, right? This galaxy has been around for quite some time. And before the human template actually incarnated into what we know as Lyra, and there's a great book called The Prism of Lyra that speaks about this, the galaxy was predominantly insectoid and reptilian beings, dragon races and reptilians, right? And when it comes to who the beings were. We exist in duality and polarity. Not all of them were negative, not all of them were positive. Some of them were neutral. There was a whole range of spectrum of it all. And there was a founder race inside the black hole in the center of our galaxy, the supermassive black hole. This founder race wanted to experience itself other than what it was. And it seems like the original imprint of creation, when Source first fragmented, Source had the thought of, let me experience myself in something other than what I am. How do I experience myself infinitely? And it looks like that in creation, not just with a human template, but with all sentient life, that when a collective of energy becomes sentient, because it's not just physical beings, these beings were not physical, they existed in the void. When you become sentient, that original spark of source calls out from you. Now that you're aware, you want to create in your image. Case in point is on Earth, we're actually creating in our own image. AI is that, even having our children and trying to imprint our belief systems on that, we're creator beings. So these beings, they wanted to do the same. They wanted to, so they chose Lyra, which was the closest area that was inhabitable near where they were in the black hole in the center of the galaxy. And they created the first human template. The first human template were what we see as feline faces with humanoid bodies. A lot of the ones that you may see even in Egypt, where there's some feline faces with human bodies. And over millennia, this galaxy, this solar system became rich with life. We had eventually 3 planets in Lyran constellation that got inhabited. And as these planets were inhabited, all types of challenges broke out between them, and even wars broke out between them. At one point, one of these planets, the main planet, the original one, went to war with another planet, completely bombing that planet into oblivion and destroying the surface. These beings, they went underground. As they went underground, because they couldn't live on the surface anymore, they eventually had to start creating clone bodies for them to transfer their consciousness into in order to be able to survive. And now we have the first original story of the Zeta Reticuli, right? And a little side note on that is the Zeta Reticuli grays. There are many different grays. There are interdimensional grays. There's grays from this galaxy. There's a constellation called Zeta Reticuli. There's a planet in Lyra called Zeta Reticuli. Grays is a blanket statement for specific beings that are now using biological entities, basically clone bodies, to transfer the consciousness into, right? So this was one of the original stories of that. So after that, different migrations leave from Lyra, right? These crater beings went out, and these crater beings were master geneticists. They went to Arcturus, they went to Andromeda constellation, they went to Orion, and as they went out, they began hybridizing as master geneticists using the DNA of local populations and hybridizing their own DNA with. These beings existed at a certain vibratory frequency. So what they were doing is, as they were going around, they were creating lower dimensional experiences, creating life in those experiences, fragmenting their souls, and then living a simultaneous life in those existences all over our galaxy. So DNA, for example, DNA is actually the biggest commodity in our galaxy and genetics. So as they were doing this, this is where there was a lot of violation of free will that occurred and the utilization of DNA without the approval of other beings. And it's also the stem of the original source of what happened in Orion with the DNA wars.
What are we then as conscious beings? Can you simplify it?
There's multiple layers to that question, to be honest. And I would say that we can go 2 routes from this. It looks like that this reality is quite holographic and almost like a simulation in many ways. That, for example, on the subatomic level, you and I vibrate, right? Everybody vibrates. The desk in front of me vibrates. All things are vibrating. But we know for sure that when I'm looking at you, you do not look like you're vibrating. So what we're realizing now is through our science is that we're piercing through the veil. We're realizing we're made up of information, we're made up of frequencies that we can't even perceive. But not only does the subatomic world vibrate, it vibrates in and out of perceivable reality. So when you look at it on the microscopic level, that subatomic particle is there, not there, there, not there, at such a fast rate that you look like you're always there, right? And so what does that really represent? What is something else on Earth that vibrates in and out as a fractal piece of light? Well, pretty much similar to a hologram. That's what a hologram does. It's a light that fractals in and out of reality that gives you a perception of what is existing. So on some level, seems to be some advanced organic computer program, and we are living within it. And now we're getting to a point where we're able to perceive the code that is making up this reality. The subatomic world, the quantum world, is the code that makes up the Newtonian world. A good example why this is the case is that the Newtonian world is goes by a different set of laws than the quantum world. But the quantum world are the building blocks for the Newtonian world. So how can the building blocks for the Newtonian world be paradoxical to the equations that make up the Newtonian world? It's almost like saying if you have a Lego block and this Lego block is made out of water, and then you make a castle out of it, but when you make the castle out of those water blocks, it's solid. How can a water block make up a solid thing, right? So one answer to what you're saying here is it seems that we're a projection of consciousness into a simulated reality that isn't just an illusion, is made to be so real that we need to exist within a paradoxical element of understanding that it's real and not real at the same time. And part of our evolution is not understanding the paradox, because the human mind can't, but to accept that we exist within it. And when we accept we exist within it, we realize that we're actors, script writers, playwrights within the play that forgot we're acting. So now to get to the simple part of this is what's happening with our conscious evolution is we're realizing that we created this reality, right? Maybe not this fragmented part of our soul, but a higher part of ourselves. And we're getting to a point of conscious evolution where we can rewrite the script. And when we can rewrite the script, that's when we get into things like Neo from the Matrix, bending space-time, stopping bullets. Because if this is that reality, all we need to do is change the code to better serve us. And since we forgot we are the coders, we think that we're a victim to this reality, but truly we are the masters, and that we're moving into that mastery phase now.
Do you feel at some point we're going to recreate the simulation into something else, or just keep playing this one and
Yeah.
be better manifestors and manipulating it?
That's a good question. I would say that so from my understanding now, I used to think that the third dimensional reality was just the matrix. But now I'm realizing, and more people are coming out with this information, that the matrix consists of different layers of the game, including harmonic expressions of it, right? So for example, imagine you're in a Mario Kart game. Mario falls off a ledge and he dies, right? And then Mario is a ghost and he starts interacting with this world as a ghost until he goes through one of those portals, those wormholes, and he becomes physical again, right? That whole time, you're still playing the game. You're still in that construct, right? And at the end of every level, what does he do? He meets the boss. Who's the boss? The shadow part of himself, right? And what happens when he beats the shadow? He ascends to the next dimensional experience, the next level of the game. But you're still in the game. So this construct includes the realm of ghosts, the realm of spirits, even some of NDE experiences are still within that construct. And there are ways to escape the simulation, is what I call it. There are ways out, right? Like Buddha came up with a way, but you don't really need to escape it per se, because people want to escape something when it's challenging and they think that they're sick and tired of it. But they're harmonic expressions. So what's happening is as we evolve, the fifth dimensional experience is still a part of the earthly construct of this simulation. So we're moving into another layer, another level of the game, but we're moving from a co-creation to a creation. So in a co-creation, you have less control of this reality because you are, for lack of a better term, a victim to the elements. You need to exist within the Goldilocks zone. There needs to be this much water, nitrogen, carbon, blah, blah, blah. Um, what people say affect you a little more. When you go to a creation, you don't even need to be in the Goldilocks zone. You if you get what I'm saying there, you can be at different parts of the solar system. You can control the weather. You have more of a centered reality where you're in your own sacred container. The external world affects you less, right? But it's still a part of that simulation. Now the real question is what lies beyond it, right? What is after we exit it? And so that's something I'm still exploring, because could even extraterrestrial worlds that interacting with us, are they another simulated expression that is able to interact with us, or are they part of the same construct that we're within?
Is it possible that exiting the simulation is a fantasy and can't be done? At least not at our level.
That's interesting because it could be that everything besides source, just the infinite expression, right? And we can even get into what source is, what the oneness is. But say that we all came from this oneness, and oneness wanted to experience itself infinitely. And then what it did was it almost created, like, just imagine a crystal where source is this light and it goes through the crystal, and then all projections of the light spectrum come outside of it. And that's almost like a projector from like a projector screen. So we could be the projection of source, and all physical experiences in all dimensions could technically be a simulated reality, but all that really exists is that source.
I'm sure you've heard about the Ascension many times.
Hmm.
And from what people are saying, is this the same thing that you're talking about, how things are going to be changing? And I guess what I mean is, are we in the Ascension or will it be
Yeah.
starting soon?
So we're always going through an ascension and descension. There seems to be around 25,000 to 26,000 year cycle of evolution of consciousness, devolution of consciousness. Not only does this align with the trajectory of our solar system in our galaxy, because here's our galaxy, Earth is rotating around our galaxy. But as we're rotating around, we're going up and above, up and below the milk of the Milky Way galaxy. We go around 200 light years above, we go around 200 light years below. The 2012 phenomena was when we were in what's called the photon belt, which is the milk of the Milky Way galaxy. That's the photon belt. The reason why for many years now, a couple decades even, you can go to certain places in the world and you can see like the Milky Way galaxy is because we were in the photon belt. Now, when you go out of the photon belt, it goes up 200 years, 200 light years. And the trajectory of on top and below just happens to coincide with the exact same 26,000 year cycle, 13,000 years above, 13,000 years below. When we go back into the galactic disk, we get bombarded with a high concentration of ether. And ether are the building blocks for all physical matter. That's how everything is created. It's the sixth element. And so we get bombarded with ether, which creates not only shifts in our consciousness, not only shifts on the planet, not only global warming comes from actually that as well. It's not so much so based on our interaction with Earth. It's just the heating up of the galaxy. But we also get washed with a vibratory frequency and specific cosmic rays that then affect our consciousness. So as we go through the devolution process, we go through what's called a forgetfulness, the amnesia process. When we devolve in consciousness, our powers, telepathy goes down, our ability to feel more centered, and ultimately, the number one thing, our ability to remember who and what we are gets lost. Then we start going through an evolution phase. So around a few years ago, we were actually devolving. We were in a devolution not too long ago, but we were right at the end of it, at the cusp of it, the Kali Yuga. And now we're going up again. We're in the evolution phase. So we have around 13,000 years of evolution. So the ascension process is really aligned with that. Now, every ancient civilization in the world has spoke about ancient civilizations saying that our calendar is actually secular, and we have around a 25 to 26,000 year cycle within that. But the only place in the world that has the dates is in India. The calendar still exists in India, and it has the dates of it. So, and within that calendar, and you can look it up, if you look up Yuga cycle calendar online, you'll see where we're at on that. And it seems like we've just left the Kali Yuga and we've entered what's called the Dwarpa Yuga. So this is the ascension, the Dwarpa Yuga. The Dark Ages, the Kali Yuga, Kali representing the darkness, the black hole, the void. The Dwarpa Yuga representing the age of energy and sovereignty, written hundreds of years ago about this theme. So we're moving from the theme of authority, hierarchy, and delusion to energy and sovereignty. And as we leave, there's a 200-year transitionary phase that we've been in. It started in 1700, it ended in the mid 1900s. And now that we've exited that phase, we're moving into the energy phase. And two parts of that energy phase is electricity, right? Obviously, 1700s electricity. Then 1900s quantum physics. Oh, there's something below that even. And then what happens at the end of this age as we're ascending is we realize we're the masters of energy. We're made out of energy. And so this is the beginning phases of us starting to get into what by the end of this age will be pure sovereignty, really realizing our own sovereignty, not giving up our power to a sovereign, but realizing we are sovereign, and also realizing we're energetic beings. And as we realize we're energetic beings, there's different tools, there's different gifts that are going to come online, telepathy, um, and that's just the beginning phases. Really, there are a lot of other superpowers that we're going to start receiving as we go through that age. And one last thing, the number one superpower we're going to have is we're going to start remembering so much of who we are and even our connection to ETs and our past lives.
Do you have a timeline for this?
Back before 2012, I was definitely into timelines, right? And I was looking for, I thought 2012 was going to be a big shift. And then after 2012, when, nothing happened, a lot of people were waiting for something. A lot of things did happen. Let me just say that energetically and actual politically, things occurred. But like game over in the sky and all of a sudden the ET's land, that didn't happen, right? That's what a lot of people were waiting for. I was waiting for that. And then I realized after that, it became more about living in the moment. So it's a paradox. The universe exists in a paradox. Ascension is not an escape route. The only way to be in an ascended reality is to find the beauty in the moment. It's a paradox. The only way to create a beautiful reality in the future is to find beauty now. The more you wait for beauty in the future, guess what the universe does? It's an unconditional Xerox machine. The universe is going to reflect back whatever you're putting out there. If you're always thinking you're never where you need to be, you're always going to receive that back. So I went through a period from 2012 to last year where I was like, no predictions, no dates. Now things are shifting a bit because it seems like we're in time, a rapid process. So I firmly believe that by 2027, based on certain people that are true whistleblowers, and offline we spoke about whistleblowers, but are true whistleblowers, the ones that don't get airtime from the CIA and different agencies, has said that the memo has gone out that by 2027 that they're going to make themselves known. They meaning these beings, whoever, a lot of beings are going to make themselves known. And if the world and the governments and the shadowy parts of governments and the secret space program don't get their stuff together, that they're just going to be exposed as these beings come down. So disclosure has ramped up because they're trying to catch up with this. So I firmly believe that in 2027, that every single person on Earth is going to know that we're not alone in the universe. And it's going to be announced in a way that on mainstream platforms, they're going to be speaking about that as well. So part of our evolution and ascension is right now, slowly but surely, more and more people are waking up to a bigger understanding of the universe, right? More people are waking up in the last few years just alone. And as they start getting to this towards 2027, and then it's a widely accepted awareness, open contact is going to be the next thing. And as we have open contact, that's when we start trading information, and technology. And part of that information is, what is the universe really? Who are we really? How did we get to this planet? What really is God? You know? And there's so many different industries that control the world: the petrol industry, the chemical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the organized religion industry. All those ones that I just mentioned are literally the ones that have a chokehold on control and power in the world. All of those institutions are what's up, what are threatened by the disclosure of this information. So I feel that as we get to this point, there's going to be a rapid awakening that's going to happen on the planet. Some people may go kicking and screaming. Some people may be open to it. And by 2030, the world as we know is no longer going to be the same, with the understanding that we're not alone in the universe, and with what's happening with AI on the planet, right, in the next few years, plus all the technology and the crash retrievals and the reverse engineer technology that they're hiding from us. There's 200, 300 years worth of technology in the future that isn't even available to us, but these military organizations are using, right? What would you do if you knew that every sickness could have been cured 20, 30 years ago? Right? That is what exists out there. So I feel that in the next 5 to 10 years, the world as we know it is not going to look as it does today.
What else is being said about disclosure that's not being talked about publicly?
Well, firstly, I got to say that I'm pretty impressed with the things that are coming up publicly, because I did not expect them to say things like, for example, when they asked David Grush who he thinks these beings are, and he said interdimensional projections of higher consciousness. He said that in Congress. Interdimensional projection of higher consciousness. Never thought I would hear that. And then the last hearing a few months ago, we had as Congress members saying, I've heard that there's a hybridization program going on, right? So I would say one thing is the hybridization program. There has been red tape around speaking about hybridization, and it's kind of been the most taboo thing that you can't speak about because of contractual agreements with certain agencies in the world with ETs to allow for hybridization to happen, right? So that's a huge component that we've done on Portal to Ascension, speaking about people that have been abducted, speaking about contactees and their interactions, and even harvesting of eggs and sperm, right? So that's a huge part there. There has been some conversations about the people's lives that have been threatened, people that have died from trying to expose the truth, but the level of information and secrets that are being hidden on that level still isn't fully out there yet. There's been a lot of people that have lost their livelihoods and so much more based on all this. And then I would say the UFO crash retrievals, something that's not being spoke about or is being spoke about, but they haven't really gone into in depth yet, is the amount of UFOs that actually have been retrieved and the types of technologies that they receive from it, right? And I'll add this one too. It's so interesting because all these, as in quotes, whistleblowers, because they call themselves whistleblowers, but they're not whistleblowers, because if you listen to all of their information, they say, oh, this is what I'm allowed to say, this is what I'm not allowed to say. Oh, I need to send this request to the agency, and then they tell me what I can say and what I can't say. So they're not really whistleblowers, because if you're blowing the whistle, you're saying stuff that will expose some truth that you're not allowed to expose based on these agencies, but they're actually passing everything through these agencies in order to share it. And so some of the information that they aren't sharing, for example, is Lou Elizondo and other people are saying, oh yeah, we know that our government is dealing with UFOs and they have bodies, but the people that actually interacted with the bodies, communicated with the ETs, did the dissections, found the bodies in UFO crash retrievals, those are the people that aren't being allowed on TV yet. And we do events where we have those people on. And we've had people that, for example, Clifford Stone. He had a Clifford Stone passed away a few years ago. He was working for UFO crash retrievals back in the 60s. They had a manual with the anatomy of 17 different extraterrestrial bodies based on the ETs that they were discovering at these sites in order to help them if they found them injured, right? So getting to the level of, yeah, we know these programs exist. I am in it. I have heard that there are beings that are being interacted with. The governments have contracts with them. We need to go one layer deeper. Who are these people in the programs? Who has communicated with these ETs, and what those agreements and contracts with our governments have been?
What do you think about the New Jersey drone thing that was just happening a few months ago?
That one is an interesting one because I looked at a lot of information, and there's are um, two different types of drones that I was seeing. One were like actual physical drones that you could see, and then there were also holographic projections that looked like light ships happening at the same time. And this wasn't just happening in New Jersey; it was happening all over the Atlantic Ocean. There was another drone that followed a government official in Washington D.C. home. Okay, there was another one that was following a British Navy ship home, following this Navy ship as well. So when these drones occurred, all of a sudden there was a worldwide phenomena of a lot of different things occurring at the same time. Now there's a friend of mine, JK Ultra, she did a whole deep dive on this where she showed that there is actually a drone program based out of New Jersey that had documentation to show that there was a corridor from DC to New Jersey that was sanctioned as testing for these new drones, right? So I think these drones, because some of them were making no sound, which is supposed to be impossible. I think some of these drones were reverse engineered UFOs and crafts that they were experimenting with and kind of testing. But at the same time as this was happening, real sites were occurring around the world as well. So these drones could have actually been launched in order to deter people from the fact that there were sightings, actual real genuine sightings around the world. And but none of us really know, because even, the current administration went ahead and said as soon as they got in office that there was them and they tested it all. But the administration just a few months before said they had no idea what they were seeing, right? So they're always trying to push this information off. So in my opinion, there were actually real UFOs and crafts occurring at that time, and the drones and these crafts showing up around the world, synchronized with each other, happened at the same moment. For one, either to deter us from the real sightings that were occurring in the world, or maybe it was just a testing of a new technology that the military was using.
So there's craft that's been retrieved, physical crafts, and some people see physical crafts, and then some people see orbs in the sky.
Hmm.
Are those sentient beings? Are those energetic coverings or, shields for physical crafts? Or what?
There's two different types of things it could be. One is that there's also something called the light body Merkaba, and the light body Merkaba are from very advanced beings that don't need actual crafts to travel. So they can use their Merkaba around the body, their own electromagnetic field, because as many ways as there are to enter the simulation, there's also the same amount of variations in different types of ways to transport yourself. So using their energetic field as a transportation vehicle coming into different realities is one of them. And the other one is that a lot of these ships, the reason why you don't see ships everywhere is because it's a frequency game. These ships vibrate at a frequency that aren't perceivable to our human senses. And when they're phasing in and out of reality or existing here, sometimes we only see them as projections of orbs or light apparitions, when there are quite physical ships, but they just don't exist within the frequency range that we can perceive with our eyes.
What about people who engage in CE5 events? How do
Hmm.
ships, thousands of feet or even miles away, be able to read our thoughts and communicate with us?
It's all consciousness. The entanglement and non-locality are two principles in quantum physics that really show what's going on. In entanglement and non-locality, all information exists all the time, everywhere. You don't have to be local; it can be all over. Quantum entanglement, that one subatomic particle spun at a different way, is then connected to all subatomic particles within the universe, and through that, you're now getting away from needing to use light or radio frequencies to communicate, sending a signal through a light spectrum, through a laser beam, sending a signal through a radio frequency. With that, you still have the passage of time. You still have 1 light year to get 1 light year away, right? With radio frequencies, even less. It takes as much long, however fast the radio frequency takes to get to that place. When you start tapping into the quantum world, you're now dealing with another set of physics. And in the quantum world, you're now within this code of the simulation. So, for example, in a video game, you are running all the way, or you're playing Grand Theft Auto, and you have to go to the end of the street, and you're in this car running all the way through it. But if you can tap into the code, you can go into the code in any position of where that car is going to be in any moment. You can exist simultaneously and see all the code at once, right? So what's happening with consciousness is everything and all things everywhere all the time, and it's connected to this subatomic field, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it. And as you get into a meditative state, you're going into the singularities within. We're all made out of infinite singularities. Subatomic particles are quantum world. Quantum world is the singularity. You could say we're made out of infinite small black holes. And those infinite singularities is the code that connects to the code of everything. And so when you get into a meditative state, you quite literally enter a void, which is in the singularity, sending that signal out into the cosmos. And now these beings, they are tapped into a level of technology we can't even fathom right now, and way beyond our just principles of meditation. They're able to pick up on those signals. They're able to see intent. They're able to see what level of heart, at what level we're leading with our heart compared to leading with fear. They're able to read all of that. And so through that meditative state, we're able to send out the signal, and then these beings respond to it. That's what happens in C5.
If we get back to the Lyran Wars, there were also wars on Orion.
Hmm.
Can you share what the difference was or what happened there?
Yeah, so the Lyran Wars were happening between the planets in that system. And even though it went outside of the system as well, it was a lot of these beings had ancestry to each other. But just imagine, for example, even on Earth, that England is at war with the US, but most of the English and the US people are actually ancestors with each other, right? Same thing. These beings had been on different planets for some time. There was challenges between them, and the wars had broke out. And these wars, and you know, I believe darkness is a catalyst for growth, and through challenge comes great triumph. If it wasn't for these wars, there wouldn't have been migrations outside of the of the solar system at the times that they were, and we would have maybe not even been on this planet at this moment, because the Lyrans, after they left, long time later, they came to Earth, and they were one of the first people that seeded humanity on Earth with the Lyrans, the Syrians, and the Pleiadians. So there was a lot of chaos and challenges there. And when they came to Earth, they were trying to fix all the issues they had in Lyra. They wanted to create a fifth dimensional paradise of utopia on Earth where they could incarnate themselves into and live in harmony simultaneously on Earth. That was the original goal. The Garden of Eden story is the story of the Lyrans, the Pleiadians, and Syrians. The snake is the Syrians, the god is the Lyrans. The Pleiadians were one of the geneticists that assisted. So that was part of that story. Now the Orion Wars, Orion had been inhabited way before humanity had been there. A lot of different reptilian races, insectoid races. Humanity eventually ended up there. Humans eventually ended up in Orion. The Orion Wars weren't per se humans against reptilians. There were beings on both sides. It was more about intent and agendas than anything else. And the Orion Wars were mainly about genetic. Um, Basically, I would call the Orion Wars the DNA Wars. And it was about genetic hybridization, violations of free will, but these genetic hybridizations and violations of free will had happened so much longer before the Orion Wars had even begun, that these beings had already become at war with each other and against each other for so long that it took them when they were at war with each other in Orion, they didn't even really know what they were fighting for anymore. They just were not supporting each other. You know, they just were against each other, kind of like an enemy for life or enemy multiple generations down, but you're not even sure what the original wound was, right? So what happened in Orion, I don't have information of what happened during the war. I have information on the last day of the war happening afterwards. So the last day of the war, if you can call it that, there was a planet rotating right next to the central star called Alnilam. And this planet was very close to the central star, kind of below it, and it would rotate around. But because of how close it was to the star, only about a third of the planet would ever be in light, even though it would rotate. This planet had something on it called the cosmic egg. That was the nickname for this technology. There's a nebula in Orion, and this is accepted by conventional science, called M42. M42 is the mother nebula of our galaxy. It's created many stars. It's created much has come from that nebula, the number one nebula in our galaxy that has created planetary bodies and stars. So from that nebula, not only was planetary bodies created, but specific types of technologies, a really high concentration of orb-like technology that was sentient. This technology was nicknamed the cosmic egg. Interestingly enough, the M42 is also named the cosmic egg. And even further than that, the Big Bang before it all was also called the cosmic egg. The cosmic egg only represents a technology that can create life. So, or create physical reality. So this technology was taken and put in the core of this planet. And what it does is it terraforms the whole planet. So you take this technology in a desolate planet, you put it in the ground, lakes, rivers, mountains, oceans, terraforms the whole planet. So the last day of the war, these reptilian beings, they invade the planet, they extract the core from the planet, and then there's a war in which I was a part of, where they were trying to overtake a Stargate, which is a portal to Earth, to other dimensions, including Earth. So the last war, the last battle, was them stealing this technology, going to war with the soldiers that were trying to protect the Stargate. They won that battle, they overpowered us, and they went through the Stargate, and they escaped.
You
So where
just
did they go? Earth.
you just mentioned that you were part of this war.
Yeah.
Did you retrieve memories from hypnosis or something?
Yeah, QHHD. 5-hour session in Orion.
Wow.
Hmm.
Well, there are myths and legends and stories of dragons on our planet. Do you think that
Yes.
there is any truth to those?
So my first QHHT session 2 years before that was all about dragons. And I didn't think I was going to see dragons. Like I had never thought I would see it. Why would I see dragons? And then I'm doing this QHHT session and I saw myself as 3 different reptilians, right? I even know what they look like. I know what their jobs were, everything. And then I start asking, why am I seeing this? And then all of a sudden, I go and meet the dragon races inside Earth, and I meet the Red Dragon tribe that was responsible for helping humans get birthed into our dimension. And as I shared earlier, there are many ways to enter the simulation. And the dragon spirits, the dragons that used to be physical but are now ascended to a non-personified state, help with that entrance into the simulation of the womb. So the the dragon races, they are actually, when I asked them why am I seeing these reptilians, the dragon said to me, we are the ancestors of all reptilians. The dragons were the original blueprint. And when we talk about dragons, especially in the spiritual world, we think of them as such great, beautiful, divine beings, but we forget to realize that they're also reptilian, and they are the ancestors of all the reptilians, right? And they are beautiful, divine, wisdom keepers, ancient beings, some of the most ancient civilizations in our galaxy. But the descendants, even the reptilians that we consider nefarious, and there's only 5% of all reptilian races in our galaxy that are technically what we would call nefarious. Only 5%. They are the ancestors to. So when I was getting this regression and I was seeing the dragon races and communicating with them and receiving all these downloads, I started realizing that they wanted us to shift our perspective on what the reptilian energy represented and the control mechanism that we have said a lot of people feel has happened from a reptilian race, to realizing that we also have ancestry to these reptilians. So now to answer your question, yeah, all these ancient civilizations speak about dragons because we actually had a connection to these beings, and they had a lot to do with our evolution, including the anatomy of our human body and our physique. In the Western world, we have slaying the dragon, right? We have the dragon as something to be feared. In the Eastern world, we have it to be revered, giving reverence to the dragon. In the Western world, not only was it a mechanism of control to basically not allow us to connect to that energy, but the dragon also represents the Kundalini, similar to the serpent. The Kundalini energy rises up, and what is the fire breath of the dragon? It's the activation of the crown. So the slaying of the dragon is also symbolic in the slaying of the Kundalini to control that Kundalini enlightenment in order to basically create a human society that is easily manipulatable and controlled by the powers that be.
Well, then why do you think the eastern side of this planet still reveres the dragon?
When I started looking for the root of all religion and deciphering through all religions, it seems like the Eastern world seems to have most of the religions there that don't discredit other religions and incorporate more. So there seemed to have been something that occurred where they didn't completely get hijacked to the point that everything got wiped out and cleaned. For example, I would say Hinduism, which happened to be the religion I was raised in, has the most truths within it, still in plain sight. Buddhism too. Buddha had something called the Kalapas. Kalapas translates to subatomic particles. It's right there in Buddhist scriptures and texts. Hinduism, I mean, that's a whole podcast on its own of all the information that Hinduism has that's about the universe, how planets exist, astrology, our ancestry, the galactic wars, the Mahabharata connected to a galactic war. All that information is there. So it seems like the Western world was more suppressed than the Eastern world. Now, the Eastern world does not have all the truths in it because what happened was they also devolved. They devolved, and we entered the Kali Yuga. And the Kali Yuga is the age of contractual relationship to God. If I do this and this and this, you will give me this. If I do this ritual and these 5 Hail Marys, I'll receive this. It went from it went from basically a knowingness, we are connected always and we are blessed and everything, to oh my God, this world is so terrible. How can I get out of it? Well, God, if I come up with these plans and if I sacrifice people or if I do these rituals, if I rotate around a fire 5 times, then you will allow my family to have abundance and things like that. So even though it has a lot of truth in the Eastern world, it also devolved and it became contractual rather than what it used to be. It used to be a philosophy, a way of life, and a sign, and some basically based on a lot of science.
Where are you with manifestation? And do you feel like you're good at it where you can manifest your own reality?
It's a constant work in progress, and but there and it's really there are a lot of beautiful things happening in my life that are being manifesting, and it's really about taking the time to acknowledge that it's happening rather than going full speed ahead. And I would say the last year or so there's been a lot of beauty that's been manifesting in my life. And what I do is what I'm getting to a point now is really spending time with myself and going through the process of feeling the things that I'm pushing aside and getting rid of as many distractions as I can to really feel how I am and to process the world around me, right? And we have a lot of distractions, we have a lot of vices, and those stop us from really, for just feeling what's going on with us. And the more that you're able to go inside the body and feel embodied and really connect to why why you do what you do, right? From a place of non-judgment, you get to a place of non-reaction with yourself. When you don't react to yourself on that level and you don't get triggered from that, you stop getting triggered from the external world as much and you're non-reactory to external influences. And I feel that is a portion of the equation of how you can get to a point of stillness that then you start manifesting things in your life that you really want to call in.
What do you think are some of the biggest lies that we all still believe?
So I would say one of the biggest lies is, well, if for the Western world that we only have this one life, that we have many lives, um, and I think there's enough evidence out there in documentaries that prove it. And then some of the other lies I would say is the fact that when you're younger, you're not told about your infinite potential and how this reality truly works. And that's because we haven't got to that point yet. When we start teaching children that we exist in this quantum reality of infinite possibilities and this parallel dimensions, and you can jump from reality to reality, and being at a place of stillness and meditative awareness allows you to tap into that reality more, we're starting to have more conscious creators in this world. And so thinking that this is all that there is, that this limitation is all that exists, that this frequency bandwidth is all that it is, I think is the biggest lie or indoctrination. And now we're starting to realize that there are spectrums of frequency that exist above and below it. So we're getting to a phase now where people are starting to explore and research what lies beyond what we can perceive. Another one would be that we only have five senses. I feel that there's way more senses, and the sixth one is telepathy. And with the telepathy tapes and different types of projects that are coming out now, we're starting to realize that. So thinking we have five senses is also a limitation. And to be general of all of that, if I was to say one thing that sums all of it up, I would say the biggest lie is the lies on how limited we truly are. We truly aren't. We're way more expansive than we've been told.
In the beginning, I mentioned that you are the creator of Portal to Ascension. You have a website, but I think you also put on events and things like that, right?
Yeah. So I started Portal to Ascension in 2008. And, 2001 is when I woke up to this information. I found the Sumerian scriptures. After the Jesus story, the Epic of Gilgamesh and the flood story narrative is what really took me to the next level. Because I was like, how can this ancient scripture be talking about the flood when I thought that was just the Noah story from the Old Testament? And I realized that almost every ancient civilization in the world spoke about a flood. And it seems to be a collective trauma that occurred on Earth where we all experienced a flood. So that led me down like deep dive into ET's ancient history from 2001 to 2006. 2006, I created an online group called 2012 Consciousness, Mind, Evolution, and Presence. People started sharing, tens of thousands of people joined. And then in 2008, I had a dream. After I lost my job as a financial analyst because the market crashed. And it said, change the name to Portal to Ascension. So in 2008, I changed the name to Portal to Ascension, and I began traveling for 3 years, nomading from place to place, doing event after event, sound healing event or extraterrestrial channeling event. And that was really the beginning phases, 2008 to 2011. In 2012, I created my first large conference called the Cosmic Reunion. And since then, I've been increasing in events. And now I would say I've worked with over 4,000 speakers, created well over 4,000 events live and in person. And we've created an online university for consciousness where we create 70 events a year, and about 80% to 90% are online, right? And we do deep dives. 2 weeks ago, we did the Orion conference, 2-day conference, 22 hours just in the Orion constellation, right? And then we have individual workshops. Like we have Meet the Arcturians with Vivian Chavez, just was a little while ago. And then we also create live conferences, one in San Diego every year, one in Glastonbury, England every year. We have one conference that tours to a different country every year. And we do cruise trip excursions as well. And now we're moving into music festivals. So the intention and goal for everything that we're doing is Portal to Ascension is a consciousness event production company. And I want to do event production for every type. I want to do I want to create an event for every type of production there is for consciousness, including music and all that. So we've been expanding and growing um, for the last few years now, and people can find out information on our website, portal2ascension.org, and we have a lot of beautiful things in store. I would say that I'm getting ready for 2007 to 2027, 2028. I think there's a lot of shifts. So we have a lot of amazing big events in store for the next couple of years leading up to that.
You said that you're getting into music festivals. Are you
Yep.
doing a lot of work with sound bowls?
Yeah. So when I first started doing events, 2008, I literally hit the road from San Diego to Vancouver, Victoria, and down. For 1 year, all I was doing was sound healing events every 3 days, just a sound healing event. And so sound was actually the reason why I got into quantum physics, because I started looking at sound and seeing the connection to vibratory frequencies. Well, it's an acoustic quantum frequency device. We're made out of sound, we're made out of energy. These affect us. So because of sound, I then started going into, well, what does quantum physics really represent about the nature of reality? So it's always been a huge component. I do a whole course on sound frequency, ancient frequency, and teaching people how to be a sound healer. I teach that as well. And the Tulum music festival that I'm doing will have music from around the world, but there'll be a huge component. We'll have one tent specifically designed for all-day breathwork experiences and sound healing experiences with not only singing bowls, but didgeridoos, tuning forks, and a lot of other instruments as well.
Neil, in doing my research of you, I also discovered that you are a spoken word artist. Can you give us a sample before we go?
Yes, I would love to. And so, firstly, I'll say I go by MC Resonance. I have it on Spotify. And a reason why I started doing spoken word is because I realized that through poetry, I was able to convey information I was learning in a way that hits both the right and left hemisphere. Because the information is like the logical mind, and then the music is the other part of your mind, the creative mind. So I'll do one. This one's called Atlantis. I wrote this one like back in 2006. So are we one yet? Going back to source. No remorse when you reinforce the course that we all endorse. Unconditional love. The highest vibration, a gift from above. Desolation of separation, we must be the ones to say this is enough. You see the third dimension, man? It was meant to be tough. There is no captivity, so unlock the cusp. Move away from hate and lust. Our thoughts begin to shift the earth's crust into a straight axis. Just like in Atlantis, stop causing damage and learn to manage self-realization. When people start to vanish, when we change our intentions and join the like-minded souls in the fifth dimension. This, this is the beginning of our oversoul mission. What is it that you envision for the future incarnations? The Christ consciousness has arisen. Tear the perception of being in this prison, this industrial system, slumber of opposites. Duality, where we get lost and forget. How to circumvent and achieve liberation. The curiosity won't last for long at all. As we move to the aquatic age, break free from the third dimensional cage of limitations Freemasons being misplaced in. This illusionary reality. Governing authorities, there will be no more war. Co-create a love ambassador. Open the doors. Life isn't supposed to be a chore. No getting on your knees, worshiping entities from the floor. The mesh is simple, man. We don't need to know anymore. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are the ones.
Great job.
Thank you, man.
I was
Thank
just
you.
I was just thinking at the end, like a rap song or a dance song has to have a chorus, that
Yeah,
there's always some chorus that everybody sings along, and that ending was perfect. We are the
yeah,
ones we've been waiting for.
exactly. It's my favorite quote.
It's cool.
Hmm.
Well, after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions or communicate with you in some way. Are you open to that?
Definitely. I'm definitely open to that.
What's the best way to contact you?
All right. So best way is portal2ascension.org. Okay, you go over there, and that has, if you sign up, you have 3,000 hours of free presentations. We have 10,000 hours of content on our channel, sorted by category, different types of topics and speakers. You can go there, check out the presenter page. You can go to the contact page if you want to reach out to me. And then I also just launched a few days ago my new website just for myself, neelarcturus.com. Neelarcturus.com. And if you're interested in connecting with me personally, that's a good place to do it. And then if you search Portal to Ascension, we have a YouTube channel, we have Instagram, and all the other platforms as well.
With the name Neil Arcturus, are you Arcturian, or at least were previous to this incarnation?
When I first got into this, like I first heard about the Arcturians around 2003. And I felt a deep, deep connection to Arcturians because they are the most technologically advanced ET species in our galaxy. And I am super into tech. And I felt like my beginning phases of Portal to Ascension was me to provide technological support, including with the webinars I do for speakers. And that's a huge part of Portal to Ascension, to really provide them with a platform. So, and I felt this huge connection with them. So, yeah, I definitely got the Arcturian roots. But then what happened was, I started realizing that Earth isn't a punishment like we've been told from many religions. Earth is a gift, and it's a gift to a lot of people that have achieved the greatest of heights within the cosmos. We have been many different beings. A lot of times, I might have been more times in the Pleiades than I have been in Arcturus. But the reason why a lot of people resonate and they call themselves an Orion starseed, a Lyran starseed, or whatever, is because the theme of that specific incarnation has the most relevance of your time now. So I might have been in Pleiades 10 times, I might have been Arcturus once, but I'm calling myself Arcturian because a lot of the merits that I acquired in my Arcturian life is important to my reality here. So to answer your question, yeah, I have deep connections to Arcturus. There's a lot of information coming through there, but there's multiple layers of what we've been. We beyond that, we've been so much. And in the last year, I'm realizing that Portal to Ascension is actually an Orion technology. That my life in Orion is the reason why I created the Portal to Ascension. In Orion, I was the Stargate keeper at that war I explained. I was at the Stargate for 101 lives in Orion. And every one of those lives, I was always at the same Stargate. And the nickname for that Stargate was the portal to descension. It was the Stargate that you would go through to descend into lower realities. And the portal to ascension is quite literally the answer to the descension process, right? So I've had many different connections and all these themes are working out in different ways.
It's interesting that you say Earth is a gift. Why do people find it so challenging here?
You know, well, it's meant to be challenging. So say that you have achieved the greatest of heights and you know so much and your consciousness is so expanding. Every dimension to me is a different data set of information. Third dimension, you have this much data. Fifth dimension, you have this much data. In certain dimensions, you expand to a level where you tap into the records of all galactic history and things like that. So we had gone to many heights. We had received a lot of data. We knew the mind of God, if you can say that. And but the whole thing within the universe is novelty, creation, novelty, newness. What else? Let me experience myself as something other than what I've experienced. Even the beings that seeded us, the Lyrans and the Anunnaki, they were creating a new experience for themselves. So as we started creating that experience, we said to ourselves, well, if we know everything, how are we going to create something new with complete knowingness? Well, why don't we create the lowest of dimensions, put ourselves in the lowest of densities possible, wipe our memories clean, and see if we can remember who we truly are? So we come to Earth into that situation with our memories wiped clean. And then we're like, oh my God, what is this? Because we completely forgot everything that we did to get here. You know? So it's like the challenge, the reason why we see the suffering is because we don't remember how we created this. And that's why the remembering process is important. Because as soon as we remember, not only does it stop becoming like we're a victim, but we also remember who everybody around us is, the people that we have challenges with, and our connection to them as well.
Neil, what kind of advice do you have people out there for their own spiritual journeys?
Yeah, as I was sharing earlier, I feel feeling is healing is really part of it all. And to right now, I'd say that this is the part of no holding back. There's a no holding back phase in the world. The world as we know is changing. Industries are changing. Businesses and jobs that exist now may not even exist in 5 to 10 years. Many people that aren't in this awareness or knowing that there's a shift, we have created so much. We have created a reality where so many people rely on who they think they are based on what they do and their bank accounts, right? And if you have a perspective that this reality is what what you do for work and how much money you make, when all those things start changing and crumbling, it's almost like your world is ending. Because what are you without it all, right? But ultimately, what really matters is all we really need as humans is to have air, water, food, shelter, right? Time will go on, people will still live, existence will still be here. So I would say the best advice is the perspective shift. And a lot of people probably here are probably already in that alignment because they're aware of it. When you see chaos, see opportunity, right? When you see the crumbling of old systems, see the ability to create something new. And the old system cannot continue because the status quo is draining our life force. The only way for this status quo to be shifted is by all the things that didn't serve us to completely go out. And it might look a little chaotic, it might look a little turbulent in the process, but on the end of it all, are you still going to have the basic things to survive? And I feel that we are. And ultimately, all humans, we want the same stuff: love, connection, to feel good, to feel seen, to feel heard. All pain, all fear, all trauma comes from a lack of those things: a lack of love, a lack of being appreciated, a lack of being acknowledged, right? From childhood or even beyond. And even those that have become so traumatic that they end up acting out nefariously in the world, what were they originally? They didn't receive the connection and love that they want. So if we can move forward with perspective and stop polarizing the other and see everybody as a part of just trying to figure it out in this world, and that there's so much trauma that needs to be processed, but ultimately all anybody wants was love. If we can see people through those eyes, I feel we have a lot more compassion in the world, and we can stop furthering the division and literally start creating the unity that we desire.
Neil, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Yes, I will say that this is a time of great change and hope. That they're just keep moving forward. Just know that there is going to be light at the end of the tunnel. And the more and more of us that put that out there in the way this world works, as we spoke about the quantum reality, the simulation, the more and more of us that put that signal out into the code of what reality is, the more likely it's going to be created. So everybody just hang on there. If you see the chaos in the world, just know that as we move through it together, that it is a lot of opportunity, a lot of expansion for us. And it's been predicted. All the ancient civilizations, they show that this is the time of a great awakening. It's happening. The chaos that we see in the world is just the old system leaving us, but inevitably, it's inevitable that humanity is waking up.
Neil, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you.
Thanks for watching the Jeff Mara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.